It's 7 a.m., and you're still sleeping. Mira's voice cut through the quiet like a blade, sharp and shrill. I blinked against the morning light, still groggy, my back aching from another restless night. Before I could even sit up, she was at the foot of my bed, arms crossed, lips curled in disgust. I said, "Get up. Zane's hungry. We're out of eggs. The kitchen's a mess. What exactly do you do all day?" I took a breath, a slow, steady breath. I had told myself I wouldn't argue today, not again. "I'm not feeling well this morning," I said softly, reaching for my robe. "I stayed up late doing the laundry you both left behind." Mira didn't even blink. She stepped closer. "You're just lazy," she hissed. "Zane works all day, and you can't even cook breakfast in your own house. No wonder no one visits you." And then she did it. She slapped me. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough to silence the room. Her hand lingered in the air for a moment, as if even she didn't believe what she'd done. I sat there still as stone, one palm pressed to my cheek. The sting wasn't physical. It was the betrayal, the audacity, the way she looked at me as if I were nothing. This was my home, my bed, my floorboards. And she hit me here. The room buzzed low and numb. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I simply turned my face toward her and spoke low and even. "You just made a mistake." She scoffed, spun on her heel, and stormed out of the room. I didn't follow. I sat perfectly still, letting the heat fade from my skin and the words settle into the air like dust. By the time the front door slammed behind her, I was no longer shaking. I was planning. They said it would be for a weekend. Zane had called me with that boyish charm he still used when he wanted something. "Just a few days, Mom. Mira's job situation changed, and our lease is ending. We'll be out before you know it." That was 21 days ago. Since then, I've learned how silence feels when it's forced. I gave them the master bedroom, my bedroom, and moved into the guest room without complaint. I cooked every meal, stocked the fridge, even folded their laundry when it sat in the basket too long. I told myself I was being kind, helpful. That family was supposed to support each other, but Mira didn't want support. She wanted territory. She began with the small things, my kettle replaced with hers, the one that shrieks like a banshee. My wooden spoon accidentally tossed my favorite coffee, swapped for some overpriced trendy blend that tasted like burnt syrup. I used to enjoy slow mornings with my books at the table, a soft jazz record playing in the corner. Now every morning started with demands and the harsh click of Mira's acrylic nails tapping on the granite countertop. Last week, I found my recipe box shoved in the back of the pantry, behind a stack of protein powders. My hardcover collection of novels boxed. No one asked. No one explained. Zane. He barely noticed. Or maybe he did, and chose not to care. When I mentioned the missing books, he smiled awkwardly and said, "Mira thought the living room was a little cluttered." Cluttered. That word hit harder than I expected. As if my life, my style, my presence was mess. I wanted to ask him, "Do you see what she's doing? Do you even see me anymore?" But I bit my tongue. Again, this morning changed everything. Because now I can't unsee it. What she's doing. What he's letting happen. I walked into the kitchen and opened the drawer where I keep my checkbook. It was gone. There was a time Zane wouldn't go to sleep without my hand in his. He used to grip my fingers tight, as if the world would fall apart the second I let go. That was after the accident when he was only 8 and still waking up in the night calling for his father. But his father wasn't coming back. A drunk driver made sure of that on a rainy stretch of I-40. I buried my grief in work. 3 jobs. One at the hospital during the day, a diner shift at night, and weekends doing private care for a woman with Alzheimer's, who called me darling and sometimes Margaret. I said yes to every shift because Zane needed shoes books insurance. Because we had a mortgage. Because I couldn't let him see how tired I was. He never saw me cry. Not once. I skipped every vacation, never bought a new car, and cooked every meal from scratch because it was cheaper than takeout. I sold my engagement ring to cover one of his high school field trips to DC. When he got into college, I wept in the car after dropping him off, not just from pride, but from relief that somehow I'd gotten him that far. The house paid off early. Every brick bought with hours I can't get back. But I did it gladly, willingly. And now he walks through my home as if he owns it. As if I'm lucky to be in his orbit. He doesn't ask how I'm doing, doesn't notice when my hands tremble as I carry laundry. He tells Mira things like she means well and laughs when she mocks my music, my clothes, the way I cook. She erases me one insult at a time, and he lets her. No, he defends her. When I confronted him about the missing checkbook, he waved it off. Mira probably moved it. Don't worry, Mom. We're family. I nodded. But inside, something was breaking. Because I don't think he remembers who bled to give him this life. The envelope was cream-colored and unassuming. It had been shoved halfway into the mailbox addressed to Zane, but what caught my eye was the red stamp in the corner mortgage refinance inquiry. Urgent response required. Zane didn't mention refinancing, and I certainly hadn't requested it. I placed the envelope on the kitchen table and stared at it for a long minute. Mira was out her yoga class, she said. Zane was still at work. The house was quiet, and for the first time in days, I could think clearly. I picked it up and walked across the street to Carla's house. Carla and I used to trade zucchini from our gardens, back when our backs were stronger and our days slower. She's a retired notary, now sharper than ever. Her eyes narrowed as she read the envelope. You didn't sign anything, she asked. Nothing, I said. We sat in her kitchen while she pulled up the Buncombe County records on her tablet. I watched the lines on her face harden with each tap of her finger. Oh, Ilara, she breathed. What is it? Mira submitted a change of address. She listed herself as the primary contact for the mortgage. And this? Carla turned the screen to me. This is a preliminary intent to refinance, under both their names. But the deed is only under mine, I said. Carla nodded. Still is. But they're trying to move fast. If the bank processes this, they could try to pull you in legally, or worse, drain equity you didn't authorize. I felt the heat rise to my ears. My chest tightened, not with panic, but with something else. Resolve. They were playing a game they didn't understand. I had been quiet too long, too polite. But now they were forging papers attempting to turn my home into a bargaining chip. I looked at Carla. Can you help me get copies of everything? She nodded. As I walked back across the street, envelope in hand, I realized something had changed. I wasn't the one being erased anymore. I was the one holding the evidence. I poured Mira her coffee just the way she liked it. Black with a splash of almond milk, no sugar. She didn't say thank you. She was too busy scrolling her phone, probably sending one of her snide little posts about boomer energy and deadweight relatives. I stirred my own cup slowly, watching the steam rise, letting the silence between us settle like dust. She thought she had won. She thought her forged signatures and fake addresses had given her some upper hand. But I knew something she didn't. I never added Zane to the deed. When I paid off this house 12 years ago, the title stayed in my name, sole owner, no co-borrower. I'd meant to update it when Zane got married, but something in me held back. Maybe a flicker of intuition. Maybe exhaustion. Now that decision was saving me. That night, while they were out at some friend's engagement party, one of those events Mira dressed for like it was an award show, I sat at the kitchen table with every file folder I had. I copied everything. Deed history, utility bills, tax records, every document with my name and mine alone. Then I called Deborah. She's been my attorney for years, helped me navigate the hospital's pension system after I retired. I told her everything. I asked for one thing, an expedited notarized affidavit confirming sole ownership based on county records and deed history. She said, "You want to take this to court?" "Not yet," I said, "but I want to be ready." The next morning, I made muffins, banana oat. Mira hated them, said they were too earthy, but Zane liked them, and old habits die hard. I set the table like nothing was wrong, because I had no intention of alerting them. Not yet. Let them think I was still folding under pressure. Let them stay comfortable. By the end of the week, Deborah delivered the papers to me in person. I tucked them into a manila envelope, sealed it, and slid it into the drawer where my checkbook used to be. They took my space. Now I was taking it back. Mira was already in mid-complaint when the knock came. "These eggs are rubbery," she said, poking at her plate with exaggerated disgust. "Honestly, Alara, how do you mess up something so basic?" Zane sat beside her, half asleep, scrolling his phone. He didn't even look up. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and moved toward the front door, calm as ever. When I opened it, the deputy stood tall, hat in hand. He nodded at me with polite formality. "Alara Whitmore." "Yes," I said. "I'm here to serve an eviction. Court authorized, signed, and filed. They have 72 hours to vacate the premises." I stepped aside, letting him in. He walked into the dining room, unfolded the paperwork, and placed it squarely on the table between the orange juice and the butter dish. Mira looked up, confused, then horrified. "What is this?" The deputy didn't flinch. "By order of the court, you are required to vacate this residence within 72 hours. She grabbed the paper, eyes scanning wildly, then whipped her gaze toward me. "What the hell is this?" "You're kicking us out." Zane stood now, panic rising behind his groggy eyes. "Mom, what's going on?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I walked over, picked up the butter knife, and nudged the eviction notice an inch closer to her plate. Then I turned back to the sink and resumed rinsing the coffee mugs. Mira's voice shrieked behind me. "You can't do this. We have rights." The deputy stayed steady. "You have 72 hours to remove your belongings. After that, enforcement becomes mandatory." Zane stepped toward me. "Mom, why didn't you talk to me about this?" Still, I said nothing. What was there left to say? They'd spoken over me for weeks, no months. Mira had slapped me in my own home, called me worthless. Zane had stood by, eyes averted. I dried my hands and reached for the last clean mug. The silence around the table began to settle, heavy and choking. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I finally heard myself think. By noon, the next day, I knew something had changed because my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't told a soul outside Carla and Deborah. But someone had. Mira. She took a photo of their packed suitcases on the front lawn and wrote a caption, dripping in performative pity. "Imagine your own mother-in-law evicting you over breakfast. We're officially homeless. Love isn't enough, I guess." It didn't take long for her army of followers to react, hundreds of comments pouring in, calling me heartless, cold, selfish. One even said I belonged in a home. A care facility, not this house. I didn't cry. I didn't even get angry. I just scrolled in silence, breathing deeply as I watched strangers form opinions based on half a sentence and an over-filtered selfie. But by sunset, something strange happened. The tide turned. A woman named Trina, someone I didn't know, commented with a screenshot from Buncombe County's public records site. The deeds only in her name. That's not eviction. That's protection. Then came another. Wait, this address was listed in a refinance inquiry 2 weeks ago. Fraud. And then the hammer dropped. Someone traced Zane's name to his employer. He worked in procurement for a regional development firm. A public comment popped up on their page. Is this the same Zane Whitmore who filed home improvement receipts under your business expense account? My hand stilled. Within hours, Zane's LinkedIn page vanished, then his Facebook, then Mira's apology, thin, poorly worded, clearly coerced. It read, "We're going through a hard time. Please respect our privacy." There's more to the story. But the damage had been done. Zane didn't come home that night. The house was quiet. Mira was gone too. Not a word, not a trace. Later that evening, Deborah called. "Did you see what surfaced?" "I did," I said, setting my phone down on the table beside my tea. The comment section had done what I couldn't, pulled back the curtain. For once, I didn't need to fight. I just needed to let the truth speak louder than their noise. The call came just after lunch while I was trimming the herb pots on the back patio. "Is this Mrs. Ilara Whitmore?" a crisp voice asked. "Yes," I said, setting down my shears. "This is Sharon from First State Mortgage Services. I'm calling to follow up on the report you filed last week regarding suspected fraudulent activity on a refinance application." My pulse didn't spike. I had been waiting for this. "We've concluded our internal review," she continued. "You were right to flag it. Not only was your signature forged, but several supporting documents listed incorrect income statements and a fake authorization letter." "Was the account active?" I asked. "Yes, but it's been accruing late fees. Payments stopped altogether last week." I stared out at the garden, letting that land. Zane hadn't just lied, he had built a lie on sand, and now the tide was coming in. "We'll be freezing the application," she said. "Your deed remains solely in your name, ma'am." I've updated the record accordingly. "Ma'am, after weeks of being spoken over, insulted, slapped in my own kitchen, that word landed like a soft blanket over my shoulders." The next day, Zane showed up. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired from work, but the kind that comes from watching everything you built on lies begin to collapse. "Mom," he started, I wanted to talk." I didn't answer. I let him fill the silence. "I messed up?" he said, hands stuffed into his pockets. "We messed up. Mira got carried away with the refinance thing. I should have stopped her. I should have told you. Can we just start over?" I held his gaze. He looked like the boy I once raised, but smaller now, shrinking under the weight of consequences. "I did reconsider, Zane," I said, my voice steady. "That's why you're not here anymore." He flinched. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I simply closed the door. Then I turned the lock, and for the first time in a long time, I left it that way. The silence was no longer heavy. It was soft now, like breath, like breeze through curtains. For the first time in months, the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath. It exhaled. I planted mint first, then basil, a little lavender near the edge. The soil was dry but willing. I pressed it gently, gave each root space water patience, the way I wish someone had done for me. The herbs caught sunlight through the kitchen window, where Mira once threw open cabinets like she owned them. Now the same space smelled of earth and green and lemon soap. I didn't speak to Zane after that last knock. No messages came, no letters. Whatever lesson he'd learned, it hadn't included apology, and I'd stopped waiting for one. 2 days after I planted the basil, Carla knocked. She held a pie in one hand, a takeout tray of coffee in the other. "No offense," she said, "but you've looked like hell lately. Figured you might need something warm." I smiled. No offense taken. We sat at the small table by the window. The same table where Mira once tossed her purse, where Zane scrolled through his phone instead of looking up. Now it held 2 mismatched mugs, a pie sliced unevenly, and silence that didn't sting. Carla talked about her granddaughter's soccer game. I told her about the lavender, how I wasn't sure if it would hold in the fall. We didn't talk about court papers or eviction notices. We didn't need to. There was peace in that ordinary moment, something sacred about folding napkins and pouring coffee without tension. As the sun lowered outside, catching the edge of the pie tin, I realized something. I hadn't raised my voice in weeks. I hadn't cried into my pillow. I hadn't been asked to apologize for simply existing in my own home. The house was quiet now, and for the first time, the quiet didn't hurt. I stood, refilled Carla's coffee, and glanced at the herbs lining the sill. They were small, but growing. And I knew in some steady way so was I. It's been nearly a year. The hallway still creaks near the third floorboard, and the kitchen faucet still hisses when turned too quickly. Some things didn't need changing. Others did. The locks were the first thing. A quiet man named Joel came out the week after the final hearing. He didn't ask questions, just removed the old hardware and replaced it with a firm click. As he left, he handed me a single silver key. "It's all yours now, ma'am." I remember turning that key in the front door that evening, the weight of it resting between my fingers like a signature on a blank page. That click, that one sound, felt louder than all the arguments that had ever echoed in this house. Since then, the walls have learned to breathe differently. No more muffled yelling behind closed doors. No more slamming drawers or sideways insults wrapped in fake smiles. Just space. Light. Silence with room to stretch. I walk through it now, coffee in hand, bare feet across hardwood floors. My name is on the mailbox, the mortgage, the deed. Not because someone gave it to me, but because I reclaimed it document by document, step by step. People ask sometimes, usually, with the same worried tilt of the head, "Don't you get lonely?" And I always answer the same, "Not anymore." Lonely is sitting across from people who pretend you're invisible. Lonely is cooking 3 meals a day for those who only speak to criticize the seasoning. This is peace. I framed the new deed last week. Not to show it off, no one sees this space unless I invite them, but because I wanted the reminder. In bold ink it reads, Elara Whitmore, sole owner. I hold it now, tracing my name. Not bitter, not bruised, just quiet and whole. No more wondering if I'm allowed to wake up late or cook what I like or close my door without a raised eyebrow. This house never needed more voices. It just needed me.